Welcome to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. I'm Emma, a certified Sympto-Pro instructor, a fertility awareness educator, and your guide to fertility coaching and reproductive health education from menarche to menopause and all the different types of motherhood in between. If you're seeking a natural, science-backed approach to managing your fertility, understanding your cycle, or simply connecting with your body in a new way, you're in the right place. Each episode is designed to empower you with the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to thrive in your unique journey. Quick disclaimer, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice or individualized charting support. For specific guidance, please consult with your healthcare provider or fertility awareness instructor. Now, let's dive into today's topic.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of a mama leads. From motherhood's highs to charting the low, your body's story is the star of the show. Matriarch heart.
Welcome back to the Cyclical Doula Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Alyssa Chavez, an endometriosis and infertility warrior turned functional nutritionist and life coach. Alyssa supports women who are navigating gut and hormonal challenges by helping them get to the root of their symptoms while also rebuilding trust with their bodies after years of pain, loss, or feeling broken. Alyssa's work takes this whole person approach, honoring not just the physical body, but also the emotional and mental layers that so often get overlooked in women's health. Her story is deeply personal, shaped by her own experiences with endometriosis, infertility, miscarriage, and learning how to move forward with compassion, and hope. In this conversation, we talk about what it means to be healed when your body isn't feeling like a safe place and how functional nutrition can help support women's and cycle health without becoming restrictive. And also, we'll talk about how women can reconnect to their bodies with all of this going on. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me today. I am super excited to be here and be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, so before we dive into like the work, what you do for your work aspect, can you tell me a little bit about who you are outside of your work and just tell me a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Southern California with my husband and 2 dogs. We've got a little baby girl on the way as well. And let's see here. My very first career in life was actually as a professional classical ballet dancer. So a little
Nice.
fun fact about me. Taught ballet for many years before I got into this nutrition work that I do now.
I love
And yeah, so I've always loved theater and dance and all of the things. I also am a big yoga enthusiast. I teach a couple of classes a week and really love my yoga practice. I love just being outside, hiking, being in nature, walking with my dogs, anything that gets me outside, camping in the summertime at least.
that. Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I love tea and books and nerding out on things. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so good. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. Is there a rhythm or a ritual that like you always go back to in this season?
Yeah, for me in this season, and I know, take this with a grain of salt because like I said, I do live in Southern California, so it's not like it's actually cold here, but it's still the cooler season.
Yes.
And so my favorite ritual is just making myself a hot cup of tea. I've actually have one next to me here, and for me it's just like it's a comfort thing. It's just
For sure.
the hot beverage and having something soothing and just, holding that nice warm cup in my hands. It just kind of lights up my day. So I would say that's my favorite ritual, really any time of year, but definitely especially this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have one.
Love
Same
it.
thing.
Amazing.
And my mom and I always joke that with like the act of like turning on the tea kettle, even if we don't go all the way to like making a full cup of tea, like feels like the ritual of just like this like coziness
Absolutely.
of it. So, it's awesome. Do you have a favorite type of tea that you drink, or does it vary?
Oh, it's a hard one for me. There's so many that I love. It kind of rotates with time.
Yeah.
I do like my herbal teas. Like I'd
Mhm.
like I like a good ginger tea or peppermint. I've been really into rooibos tea lately.
Yeah.
Um, Typically I do a lot of green and black tea. I'm not really doing caffeine right now during
Right.
pregnancy, so I haven't been doing much of that lately, but in general I do like a good green or black tea also.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
good. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. So let's get into a little bit more about like how you came to be in this work, which I think comes a lot from your experience of for
Mhm.
yourself as well. And you had described yourself as a endometriosis and infertility warrior. Do you want to share a little bit more about what that looks like to you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting because I remember first hearing the term endo warrior
Yeah.
probably shortly after I had been diagnosed with endo, and I kind of thought that, oh, like that's a cool little term. And at the time, I definitely had symptoms, but they weren't as severe as they were later on, I would say. And I've definitely learned over the years that, oh yeah, no, you really are a warrior going through this. Like that is a very accurate term. Cause yeah, this whole everything that I do now has come about because of my own experience, which I feel like is true of so many of us
Oh,
within this wellness
absolutely.
space. Most of us didn't just stumble upon this by accident. So yeah, I back in 2019 is when I was first diagnosed with endometriosis, which actually that diagnosis came about because I was already going through a fertility journey at that time.
Yeah.
My husband and I got married in 2017, and so I actually went off of birth control in 2016 in preparation for that because we wanted to have a family right away. We'd already been together for a while, we were ready, and so I was like, well, let me get my body ready and just
Yeah.
let my body settle back into its natural cyclical rhythm, which all sounded wonderful. But what ended up happening is that things kind of fell apart at that point in
Yeah.
time. I started having the painful periods, and I started having a lot of gut issues and fatigue, and
Mm,
just all of acne breakouts started going crazy. I was like, what is happening? I am in my what was I, 27, I think at the time, I thought I was done with this phase of my
yeah.
life.
Absolutely.
And it all kind of got progressively worse over the next few years. So not only we were not conceiving like we had really wanted to, but my health just felt like it was struggling and getting worse all the time. It felt like each cycle was worse than the last.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where my periods were so intensely painful that I really couldn't function. I mean, definitely
Hmm.
working was out of the question. I was just couch bound, couldn't stand up or walk or move or really do anything. I mean, it was just super intense pain for
Hmm.
days at a time, every single cycle.
Yeah.
And so I'd even been to a couple of doctors along the way just to check in because I just thought, well, this can't possibly be normal. I know, many women have painful periods, but this just seems like it's another level.
For sure.
This just seems like it's outside of the realm of normal. And even taking, I've never liked taking pain medications, but even
Hmm.
when I would try taking an Advil or something, it didn't even touch the pain. Like, didn't help at all. And when I did go and see doctors, I was just told, well, just go on birth control. And I was like, well, first of all, I did that for years in my, early to mid 20s. And secondly, I'm my biggest goal here is to have a family. So that seems not very in alignment with with that
Nope.
particular goal. Like how can we handle both of these things? But it wasn't until we went to see a fertility specialist for the first time in 2019 that I was actually diagnosed with endometriosis. At the time, just even based on an ultrasound, they were able to see a large endometrioma on my ovary. And so at least I had an answer to why I was in so much pain all the
Yeah.
time, it was nice to at least have some information there because previously I was just left going, I don't know what's happening in my body. But we were told at the time that, hey, you guys had better just go straight into IVF. In a case like yours, it looks like it's probably a more severe case of endometriosis. You probably should just go straight into IVF. That's really going to be your only option to have a family. And so early 2020, we decided to dive in and do that. So we actually did a couple of rounds of IVF throughout 2020, kind of got spread out because, we had
Mm-hmm.
this whole global pandemic happen that year
Right.
as well, because why not just do all the things at once?
For sure.
And so, yeah, we ended up doing a couple of rounds of IVF and did have success on our second round, which was thrilling at the time. Just
Yeah.
we were over the moon and ended up having a miscarriage at the end of all of that. So, which is just, you know, having a miscarriage is devastating anytime, especially when you really want to have a family. But to have that happen after years of infertility already and having gone through IVF and just all of the physical and mental and financial toll that takes, it really
Mm-hmm.
just hit me hard and made me take a step back and want to work on my own health, which is really when I started diving into the functional nutrition journey and exploring
Yeah.
all of the avenues, all of the things that I do today. So that's kind
Yeah.
of how it all started for me.
That's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing all of those
Yeah.
details. I feel like we get to know you a little bit better, but I feel like you said, like everybody who's kind of in this wellness space has a story about how they got to be
hmm
in the specific niche that they're in. And, um, thanks for taking the time to do that. So tell me a little bit more about what you're doing now with your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So the work that I do now is as a functional nutritionist, I help people to really dig into what's going on. The way I think of it is kind of under the hood in your body. So
For sure.
oftentimes, and I know this kind of is what happened to me, I would go to doctors and they would do some testing, but it always seemed kind of more surface level stuff, just running basic blood work and maybe an ultrasound, and that was about it. And I just never really got any clear picture of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So with the functional side of things, the testing that I use helps to get a much more clear picture of not just what's going on in your body, but also the why behind the symptoms. What's really causing some of the symptoms that you have going on? What might be contributing to inflammation in your body? What might be contributing to things like gut issues and hormone
Yeah.
imbalances? And if you're struggling with fertility, what might be kind of behind that? And use all that information along with just your personal experience of
Right.
what's been happening, what are you feeling, what are you seeing, what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And we use that to make a game plan moving forward. And that can look like definitely supporting your body through nutrition. So helping to figure out what foods are going to work best or not work best for your unique body. So it's not like a one size fits all, this is what you should eat, but figuring out what's going to work best for each individual.
Yeah.
And also, using targeted supplementation and lifestyle changes and all of the additional things that can help to support your body. And then, of course, as you mentioned, as you were introducing me so eloquently today, I also layer in a lot of the mental, mindset kind of work, nervous system. There's a lot of layers there as well that I like to add in just because it had such a huge impact for sure on my life. And I know it does for so many others as well. So I kind of layer in all of the pieces there in my work.
Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like for everything, when anybody starts that healing process, there's like all those layers that even if you heal one aspect of it, you're like, ooh, I gotta also do the mental work or also do some of the other physical stuff, and all of those kind of come together. So you shared kind of like up to your journey about learning about this, and then did you go through a similar process for yourself of what you walk people through now?
Yeah, I did. So that's, again, honestly, I really got into this work initially to be able to learn how to
Do it for
support
yourself. Yeah.
myself. I mean,
Yeah.
I just, I was reading about all the things and how I could support my body. And I said, gosh, I really would like to just get an education around this and really,
Mm-hmm.
really be able to support even just myself and my family better along the way. And so I started diving into some actual education around the functional nutrition and all of the things.
Yeah,
And so, of course, along the way, I was my own guinea pig, just,
absolutely.
learning to support my own body and, I made massive changes to my diet and lifestyle. And a lot of that was over time. It's not like I did all of it overnight, but kind of layered in the things, starting with more of the foundational diet and lifestyle pieces. And then later on, digging into some of the functional testing to dig deeper and learning what was really happening in my body and how my body, could and should be functioning optimally. So yeah, absolutely. I was my very first client.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
continue to be, of course, throughout my life, I'm sure. But yeah, that was really the start of the work that I do. Was I want to support myself, and I started to realize that, gosh, I'm really seeing some massive changes happening in my body. This is amazing. I definitely need to share this with other people. So I ended up expanding out and actually working with clients along the way. And honestly, I'm so glad I ended up doing that, because truthfully, there's so many people out there who are struggling with very similar things, and
Mm-hmm.
similarly to me are struggling to find that support that they need. So I'm very thankful to be able to support others on their journey as well.
Amazing. I feel like endometriosis is one of those things that's so often misunderstood in our society, and partially just because so many people have it and aren't diagnosed with it yet.
Yeah.
And it takes years. What's some of the things that you wish more women knew about it?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with that. Just I wish more
Yeah.
women knew about it is
New
definitely
in
a good
general.
foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because even when I was diagnosed back in 2019, I had heard the word before. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't completely unfamiliar to me, but I didn't even really know what it was. I
Mhm.
mean, it's not something that's super widely talked about if you haven't either gone through it yourself or maybe know somebody who has or something like that. And it is unfortunately common enough that I feel like many women either have experienced it or know somebody who has. But if you don't, I mean, how would you really know that it exists? So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
just some education around all of that, even for, women in their teens, early 20s, like high school,
Mhm.
college age,
Yeah.
educating people around not just endometriosis, but all of the things, endo and PCOS and fertility and just all of these things that are super common for women, but nobody really talks about until you start experiencing symptoms. I just feel like because you're right, you were talking about the delay in diagnosis is a huge thing. I mean,
Mhm.
it's averaging right now 7 to 10 years of
Yeah.
women, from the onset of symptoms until actually receiving a diagnosis. And that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
a decade of people's lives is being, I don't want to say lost, but as far as their health is being
Yeah.
lost to just not even knowing what's happening. So
And like
that's
you
huge
shared, like a
frustration.
lot of people are living in like serious chronic pain
Oh,
for a
yeah,
good portion of that. Yeah.
absolutely. And it's very
Yeah.
common to be dismissed with that too, kind of like I
Yeah.
was initially, of just like, yeah, well, period pain is normal. Most women experience it at some point.
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
either take some pain medication and or take some birth control. That's kind of the common thing that we're offered
Yeah.
without really digging deeper. And I think that's a huge source of frustration for a lot of people.
Absolutely. It totally is. And I think like I always tell clients when whatever they're looking for support in, but especially when it comes to possibilities around endo, is just like write down as much of the information with like statistics like or data of it. Like I like if you say like I have really heavy periods, be like no, like I am using X amount of pads, tampons, whatever,
Right.
this many times of day and all of those things, because then it kind of will be more specific, because a lot of people say all of those things. But I also feel like on the flip side of that, I feel like as a society of women, like we don't do a great job making sure that like a lot of people, like I said, like I think it's 1 in 4 women have endometriosis, but I don't know if you know the actual statistics.
It's actually a little bit higher than that. It's more like 1 in 9, 1 in 10 is what I'm hearing
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
But I mean, that's
Perfect.
still like 10% of
Still.
the world's population of women. Like that's
For
still
sure.
pretty high.
So, and I think like so many, thank you for correcting that. I think that I feel like so many people, especially like when we're in like high school and college, like there's this conversation around like, oh, like I'm on my period and like so much bleeding or like in a lot of pain or like all of these things, but we don't like qualify what that really means. And like you were saying, like when people are missing work or when people are missing activities or like not being able to participate in stuff or not being able to do their normal activities, like that's like beyond the like red flag of it being a concern. Like usually it's a concern when it's just starting to kind of disrupt some stuff. For most people, like periods shouldn't really be like, yes, some discomfort is normal, but it really shouldn't be painful.
No.
Yeah.
Which we're not told growing up.
No,
I mean,
it's so frustrating that that's not the case.
yeah. I mean, honestly, the first time I heard that, it was a huge revelation to me that, what do you mean it's not normal for women to be in pain on their periods? Because even dating back to high school, and I didn't have the super intense pain until later when I was in my 20s and came off birth control. But even in high school and even in my late teen years, I had some cramping for sure. It was probably more within the semi-normal range at that time compared to later. But it was painful. I mean, I definitely would be curled up in bed with a heating pad and pop in some Midol or something to get through it. It definitely wasn't painless. And so I remember hearing that for the first time when I started learning more about women's health and what it really should look like, and hearing, oh yeah, periods should feel like maybe a little discomfort, maybe a little lower energy than normal is considered normal, but it's actually not normal to have pain, to be so exhausted that you can't get out of bed, to have that super big dip in your mood even, which we know is again super common. But it goes back to the whole idea that just because something is common doesn't mean it's how your body should be functioning normally if we're looking at a truly healthy individual. And I think that is where that line has gotten a little fuzzy of just,
well, for sure.
Because so many people experience it that now it's just considered normal. Well, not really.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, at least in regards to this, for sure. So what are some of the like common patterns that you see with women that you're working with in regards to like either hormonal challenges or endometriosis when it comes to things like digestion or inflammation, things like that you're working with on a regular basis?
Yeah. So I would say most of the women, probably at least 90% of the women coming to me, which I do primarily work with women with endometriosis, but I do also work with women who have other just gut and hormone related stuff as well. But I would say primarily it's very, very common to have gut issues going on. Like almost everybody comes to me and has some bloating going on, some constipation, or just weird bowel movements, maybe inconsistency with bowel movements and things like that. Again, circling back even to my own journey with that, I kind of didn't realize that was not a normal thing initially. I just thought like, oh, well, I just have weird digestion sometimes and whatever. But this is where, with everything I've learned over the years, everything in our body really is connected. It's not like, oh, your digestive system is completely separate from your reproductive system and your hormones. Those things are all very intimately linked. And, you were asking about the hormones as well. It's very common for me to see hormone imbalances of all different kinds. Honestly, I've seen so many different variations of that. Some women have just an imbalance between the estrogen and progesterone. Maybe the estrogen is just higher than progesterone. But honestly, I've also seen women with just overall low hormone production or
Mm-hmm.
just changes of the hormones throughout the cycles. I mean, I feel like I've seen every possible variation with that. But it's all very connected. And so, for example, when it comes to estrogen, I'll talk about that one just because when it comes to endometriosis in particular, or just heavy and painful periods, estrogen is definitely an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But what people don't tell you is that your estrogen, we want it in our bodies for sure. It has a lot of
Mm-hmm.
really positive benefits. It's just a matter of helping your body to utilize it correctly, meaning you use it and then you lose it is really how it should function. We build estrogen, we use it for the moment that we need it, and then we want to be able to eliminate it from our bodies. And that's honestly where I see a lot of women struggle, because your estrogen has to be processed through your liver. Your liver ends up sending the packaged up estrogen that's ready for elimination into your digestive tract, and it gets eliminated through your poop. So it actually has a direct connection right there with your gut and with your liver. And when the health of those areas are struggling, which you may be able to see based on symptoms like
Yeah.
having that chronic bloating, or women who are just having constipation all the time, that whole process can get backed up, and we can end up with having some of that estrogen, get reabsorbed, recirculated in your system, and that can start to cause problems. So for me, that's why my brain always goes to, I always just think about the why. So,
Yeah. Right.
okay, we have hormone imbalance. We know that there's something going on there. Why is that happening, and how can we help to support that? And same thing with
Absolutely.
inflammation. You had mentioned that piece as well. Super
Mm-hmm.
common. Again, if you're having really painful periods, definitely if you have endometriosis going on, we know that there's some level of inflammation in your body. So the
Right.
next piece is figuring out why that's happening, which
Mm-hmm.
can, again, come back to the gut. It can come back to your blood sugar regulation. It can come back to
Yeah.
your diet. It can come back to your nervous system. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
pieces to look at with that. So that's really why I just take a whole body approach of looking at all the things, putting
Yeah.
together all the pieces, and just supporting you as a whole being from every possible avenue we can explore. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've seen get the best results for people. And instead of just, focusing on one thing like the hormones.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense because again, like we're a connected human body. Like everything is gonna have that connection. So
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, let's pause here for a quick brain break. If you've been listening to this and thinking that you want to learn more about how your cycle works and what is going on, you know that something's not right maybe, but you don't want to try to fix it alone, or you don't even know where to start, I'd love to invite you to book a free clarity call with me. On that call, we'll talk through your cycles, your symptoms, what you've tried, what feels overwhelming, and help identify your next right step, whether it's learning to chart, learning how to support your ovulation, navigating that postpartum season, or deciding if deeper support inside my matriarch program makes sense. This isn't going to be a pressure call, it's a clarity call. If that feels supportive, I would love for you to book one with me at emma.com/free. All right, let's get back into the conversation. Do you feel like when you're working with women, is there a lot of the times I feel like people are probably coming to you with like, I need to fix this type of symptom. Are you like helping people since you're working on that like mental health aspect of it too? I'm sure you're also working on like helping like change their process around their whole experience with food and
Yeah.
pain and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I see so many women. I've had many people come to me where they've maybe already explored some of the dietary and lifestyle
Yeah.
pieces on their own. And, they've heard, oh, you should be avoiding gluten and dairy and corn and soy and sugar and alcohol and like this huge list of foods that
Yep.
you should avoid. And what ends up happening sometimes is that you end up on this diet that just feels super restrictive and feels like you have no freedom and you can't go out to eat and can't, live a normal life. And yet they're still experiencing all of these symptoms. And so then they'll start to say, like, oh, well, I don't even know if diet is helping. And what I've found is that, yes, making some dietary changes can definitely help with inflammation. And is there truth to some people have sensitivities to certain foods and certain foods can cause inflammation? Absolutely. But coming back to the mental health side of it is obsessing over your diet and trying to eat this
Yeah.
absolutely perfectly clean diet going to best serve you in the long run? Probably not, because at the end of the day, what's going to serve you best is something that you're going to be able to actually stick with on a longer term
Mm-hmm.
basis and be able to feel good about and be able to enjoy. I mean, for me, I think from the outside looking in, I would say I eat a pretty clean diet. Like most people, when I have other family members come over to my house and things like that, will say, wow, you eat so healthy.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a matter of I've learned over the years what foods work for me, what don't. I feel best when I actually am nourishing my body well. It's one of those things that's just well worth it for me to take the time to cook a meal rather than go and pick up some takeout food because I know that I feel so much better when I do that. But there's also a balance with that. We're in the holiday season right now as we're recording this, for example, and I'm totally okay with letting myself be imperfect along the way as well. And this is what I always tell my clients, that it's not about the perfection. Honestly, it's more about the consistency than it is perfection.
For
It's
sure.
like if you're eating vegetables, most of the days and you're generally doing pretty well with that and you're, you know, mostly focusing on a whole food diet and just really those foundational pieces, then you're going to be totally fine if you have a little more sugar here and there, or you let yourself loose and have a little fun, or you go out to eat with friends sometimes and you get to go and enjoy that. It really doesn't have to be this absolutely perfect diet. It's more a matter of figuring out that nice balance, what helps you to really feel nourished inside and out.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
what I really help people to navigate, is just finding the balance between all of that and what's really going to work for you on a long-term basis.
Yeah. For sure. I think that that's like it's so important to have like support in figuring that out too, because I feel like you can read so much information, but then when it gets down to the nitty-gritty of like what's going to support you like specifically about either like the specific foods that you're eating that's going to fit like work best for you, but also just like how that's going to work lifestyle wise and all of that. It's so helpful to have support like what you're
Yeah,
doing for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. Do you feel like there is one piece of like starting place when people are overwhelmed to take that first step?
That's such a great question. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, my best piece of advice there is to pick one thing to start with, because
Yeah,
you're hearing me talk about all of these different avenues that I work with and all of the ways that I support people and have supported myself along the way. But I want to express very clearly that that all happens over time, right? I'm certainly, even whether I'm supporting myself, in years past, or even when I'm working with a new client, it's not like day one we have to do all of these things all at once. It's
for
going to
sure.
be little by little. So pick one thing. And as to what that one thing is, pick what resonates most with you as you're listening to this.
Hmm.
Does making some dietary changes sound interesting and sound like something that you would like to explore? Then just focus on that one piece,
Hmm.
right? Or maybe you kind of have an inkling of, gosh, I really have just been under so much stress lately and been putting a lot of pressure on myself and that perfectionism and all of the things, then maybe
Mm-hmm.
doing a little more nervous system support first might be helpful for you. Dive
Absolutely.
into a little bit of, a meditation or a breath work practice, or, get into journaling. I mean, there's, again, so many different avenues to help to support on that front as well. Find something that helps you to just feel calmer in your body, to kind of
Mm-hmm.
rev down the nervous system a little bit. It's really a matter of finding that one thing that helps to move the needle a little bit. And
Yeah.
then once you have that kind of dialed in, you can add more. But I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of what I see with people getting overwhelmed is that they're trying to do it all at once. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to just, okay, well, I'm not feeling well. I'm having all these issues and I really want to just feel better. So I'm just going
Yeah.
to basically scrap my entire life and start from scratch and change my diet and do all these lifestyle changes and, change my exercise routine and work on my sleep and work on this nervous system support. And I have to meditate for an hour every day. And I need to get into yoga and I need to do all of the things at once, and then it can just
Yeah.
feel like, whoa, it just feels like so much to try to navigate all at once while you're still living life at the same time, because most of
Mm-hmm.
us probably still have to, work and navigate
Unfortunately, we
family
have to make
stuff.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be nice if we could all just, quit our job and sit at home and just focus on our health, but that's
For
not
sure.
realistic for most people. And yeah, so that's my best recommendation, is pick one area to start with, start to work on getting that dialed in, and then move on to the next thing and just build these habits slowly over time so that it
Mm-hmm.
does feel sustainable and actually helps you to feel good, and it becomes something that you can sustain for a lifetime instead of just for this 1 week when you're really trying to make all the changes.
Absolutely. Um, do you feel like there's this extra well, there's got to be an extra pressure when people are trying to conceive, of like trying to get things done quickly so that they like can be in this stage of achieving a pregnancy in the time frame that they're hoping to do so?
Absolutely. And again, it's a little bit of an interesting balancing act with that,
Yeah.
because I went through a very long fertility journey. I mean, from start to finish, it's been a 9-year journey. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not short.
No.
Certainly not on the time frame I had imagined.
No,
I
not
thought
at
I was
all.
going to get married and within a year have a baby at home, and that's certainly
Yeah.
not what happened. So the first thing I'll say with that is, honestly, what's going to give you the most peace of mind is to let go of that time frame, as hard as it may sound.
Mm.
Because just automatically, and I know this from personal experience, when you have that pressure of just, I need to have a family right now, like I need to be pregnant in a month, that's a lot. It's a huge ask.
Yes. Yeah.
And it feels very pressury, even just on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, honestly, for me, I think one of the things that really helped me to be able to conceive naturally this year is that I took that pressure off. It's not like we
Yeah.
gave up or said, oh, never mind, we're just going to not have kids and walk away from it all. But I kind of just did a let go and let God kind of moment of just, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm just going to focus on feeling good and taking care of myself and taking care of my nervous system and my mindset and my mental health. And what that really meant for me was pulling back from that pressure of, I need to get
Mm-hmm.
pregnant now, which
Yeah.
I have to say was a challenge making that decision, because I'm
For
36
sure.
now, so I'm definitely in that age bracket where everyone's telling you your fertility is declining and all of the stuff, which I have thoughts on that, but that's a whole different story.
For
But
sure.
definitely, I would say that's a huge first step, is you kind of just have to take the pressure off and allow
Mhm.
yourself the space to just let your body heal and come back into balance. And once all those things click into place, then the beautiful thing is kind of like what happened with me. It just happens kind of spontaneously. I mean, the month that we ended up conceiving, we weren't necessarily even quote unquote trying. It's not that we weren't, but I
Yeah.
wasn't tracking my ovulation at the time. I wasn't, doing some of the things I used to do very religiously in the past.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, my period's a few days late. What's going on here? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
surprise, I'm pregnant. So, you know,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like for other people who are in that same boat of walking through that long fertility journey, it's got to be hopeful to hear like that can be. And also like I can see there being frustration around people saying like just to like let go. And I know like the idea of like stress less is like stressful in itself.
Yeah.
But I
Absolutely.
think there's a lot of power. You worded some of it of like focusing on like helping regulate your nervous system and like making sure that your body's in the best place that it can be. And I think like that is always when anybody asks me like if they're kind of switching when I'm working with clients, switching from avoiding pregnancy to thinking about possibly having a baby soon. That's always my suggestion of like, okay, like make sure like you're feeling like you are the best in the best place in your body that you can be, because it's like especially mentally, because I think like that's one thing that like once you're pregnant and once you're postpartum, like you can be the best parent that you can be when you already have those tools in place. And especially like postpartum, like there postpartum hits in waves of different things, and that's just there's just kind of like this like natural chaos to postpartum. And I think when people have those tools in place, it can be really helpful. So I think that that's a good reframe of like, nah, you don't need to just like let go in the sense of not thinking about it to like to get pregnant, but to just be able to focus on making sure that your body is in and your mind is in the best place as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like you said, I know I heard this many times, and I know many other women going through this fertility journey hear that as well, of just like, oh, you just have to stop stressing out and then you'll get pregnant. It's like,
Yeah.
well, trying to shut off that button is not going to happen right now.
If you could let me know how to do that, that would be great.
Right. Where is the off switch for that?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to get into that anxiety mindset of like, gosh, is this ever going to happen for me? What's wrong with me? I think my body's just broken. I mean, these were definitely all thoughts that I had over the years.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, it wasn't so much a matter of turning that off as it was shifting my focus to other areas, because I started to realize that, okay, my goal was to conceive and have a baby. But at the end of the day, what I really needed was an environment that's conducive to that. I'm wanting to grow a new life in my body, and yet I'm expecting that to happen in a body that's super stressed out and anxious all the time, and, constantly hypervigilant of what's happening in my body and all of the things. And I started to realize like, gosh, doesn't actually seem like an environment that is very conducive to having new life grow in there. So when I took a step back and just said, you know what, I'm just going to really focus on that, just feeling good again, letting myself go out and have fun and focus on other things and, bring in some of these nervous support system practices just to, not just with the goal of, well, if I religiously, meditate every day, then I can get pregnant. No, it was more a matter of, I'm going to layer in some of these practices because it feels good. I feel calmer when I do it. I feel better. I feel more prepared and ready to support whatever my body needs to do. And it helped me to feel better in so many ways. So yeah, it's not like you're hitting an off button one day and just forget about it. Don't worry about it. But it's just, how can you shift that focus in a way to really just nourish yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I had one more question come up as I was thinking about
Mm.
all this, and
Yeah.
if you don't want to share it, that's totally fine. But do you also work with people, like partners with husbands as well? And is do you feel like that's a big piece of some people's, obviously, like if people have endo, like that's obviously a big aspect of healing that.
Yeah.
But do you see that being a part of working to heal as a like couple?
Absolutely. Yeah, and like you said, it's definitely on a case by case
For sure.
basis because I know even in my journey, like we had gotten my husband tested on our fertility journey fairly early on, and we did it again maybe a couple years ago, and every time he's been tested, everything was just perfect and clear and like didn't seem like there were any issues. So
Mhm.
sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
And then other times, maybe we've worked on the woman's health for quite some time and things aren't happening, or sometimes people just, maybe are feeling a little bit more of that, biological clock ticking and that
Yeah.
time pressure and just want to explore all the things early on. The beautiful thing is that checking into the male health is generally simpler in the
Yeah,
sense
it
that
is for
as
sure.
far as from a fertility perspective,
Yep.
you can look at the health of the sperm and there's less moving pieces involved in that, but
Yep.
it's absolutely a factor because it's even if somebody is struggling with endometriosis or the woman has some particular issues that she's working on, it doesn't mean that there isn't some kind of male factor
Mhm.
piece behind it as well. So
For sure.
it's always worth exploring in some capacity if you haven't looked into that before. And same thing, there's so much that you can do to support male fertility through the functional side of things as well. There's definitely nutrients that can be helpful. It's always good to even look into things like, is there any underlying, toxicities happening that could be impacting male fertility? Or there's, shifts that we can make on that front. There's definitely a lot of pieces that we can support there as well. So yeah, I've definitely worked from both sides. I've worked with, just the women, and I've worked with couples as well who are trying to conceive, who just really want to look at all the pieces. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Really cool. That's so good. Is there anything else that as you're talking that you want to share about anything, your story, your work, anything?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my biggest hope with sharing my story is that it just gives others hope and inspiration on their own journeys. Because I think for me, that was really one of the most powerful pieces for me along my journey. Because so often I was just told, you know, well, if you haven't conceived naturally yet, you're probably not going to. You with someone with stage 4 endometriosis, like what you had, most likely you're not going to conceive anyway. Even if it had been when I was younger. I was told that endo is just a lifelong condition. It's something you're just going to have to learn to manage and live with. And, basically we just manage it with surgeries and medications and just all these things that just kind of bugged me and
Mm,
made me feel like, gosh, I feel like I'm just living in this body that's broken and doesn't work correctly. And it led to a lot of feelings of just sadness and anger and guilt and all of these emotions that come along with that. And when I started to realize that, there's so much that I can do to support my body, it felt very empowering. And, for me, even shifting from having those really intensely painful periods to as I was doing the functional nutrition work and all of the things, I ended up having completely pain-free periods in probably these last couple of years, even before I conceived. And I just kind of made a decision of, you know what? I'm not going to listen to all that. They don't
yeah.
know everything. And also, I just really wholeheartedly believe in our body's capability of healing. I just
Hmm.
believe that we're we have such a beautiful innate capability of that nobody really talks about.
Hmm.
And so I just decided to put my faith in that instead and just recognize and know that my body is capable of that, and that so many things are possible, that even if, you're given very slim odds, or, you know, it seems highly unlikely, it doesn't mean it's not possible. And I hope that my story and my journey just lets people know what can be possible for you. It can be possible to live pain and symptom free, even in a body that once felt like it was falling apart. It is possible to conceive naturally even if you were told that you wouldn't be able to, or that it would be very difficult, or it's not very common, or whatever. So much is possible. And so I hope that just brings some hope to somebody else on their journey.
It's amazing. I'm sure it will. Yeah, absolutely. It definitely will. Thanks so much for sharing all of that. Where can people connect with you best?
Yeah, absolutely. So best places to find me would be, I do like to hang out on Instagram at aligned.to.rise, aligned to rise. You can also find me on my website, which is the same, www.alignedtorise.com. And I do also host my own podcast called Aligned to Rise. So you can definitely find me, hang out with me in any of those places, and I would love to connect.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing those. We'll be sure to link all of those things in the show notes. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here and share your story, and I'll give a little bit of a glimpse into what you do.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks so much for being here with me today on the Cyclical Doula Podcast. The fact that you care enough to learn about your body, your cycles, and your health in a deeper way matters more than you realize. If something in this episode resonated with you today, I'd love for you to share it with a friend, leave a review, or send it to someone who needs to hear it. This is how this work reaches so many more women. And if you're ready for more personalized support with your cycle, birth control decisions, or trying to conceive, postpartum charting, or just understanding what your body's doing in general, you can book a free clarity call with me through the link in the show notes. Until next time, keep listening to your body. It's not random, it's not broken, it's speaking, and you deserve to understand it.
Welcome to the space where cycles breathe, where the real raw life of a mama leads, from motherhood's highs to charting the low. Your body's story is the star of the show.